We're a generalist investor, so we invest across all business sectors as well as business models. When I graduated, there wasn't many graduate jobs or pathways into tech or startups, or even venture capital for that sake. So, went down the traditional corporate path into consulting, did that for a couple of years, and then, decided I wanted to leave. And that was where the Australian startup ecosystem started to grow, and there was a lot more roles around startups and even venture capital. And at Investible, we focus predominantly on, we call it pre-seed to Series A, like those are the stages of investment. So what that means in reality is pre-seed investments typically can be businesses that are not or pre-revenue, so not generating revenue. So that's sort of the early stages where they might have a product or hopefully an MVP in place, but again, no paying customers, but maybe some users. So that's sort of where we typically the earliest we invest, all the way to Series A, where they might be generating, let's just say 2 to 5 mil of annualized revenue in that sort of range. But to answer your question around what we look for and what we're seeing, I think we invest in software companies, of course, but we also look at hardware and deep tech companies. So we actually are looking more recently at some deep tech companies, given the rise of AI and potentially AI infrastructure. So those that can plug the gap into or feed into the supply chain of AI applications. There's a flood of AI-enabled startups at the moment, and rightfully so. It's much easier to build using open source large language models. Probably underlooked by a lot of people is the founders and the quality of the founders, and particularly what is the unique insight that these founders have into the problem that they're solving. So we want to know why you as a founder versus someone else who's building a similar solution, right? And usually that's identified by, if you're solving a specific workflow, for example, within an industry, that workflow is being solved really well by AI, whether it be like agentic solutions or other means. I think there's an opportunity to expand wider in terms of workflows or use cases. And I think that's where you can ultimately, hopefully you can end up winning the entire end-to-end workflow within an industry. And I think that's where the solutions become really powerful and can add a lot of value, and hopefully the customer will choose your solution versus choosing multiple solutions. I think ultimately in the long term, the sort of positive or long-term view is that every software company will ultimately be an AI-enabled software company. That's just the reality. I think if you don't adopt AI in the long term, I think you're going to lose out just based on usability and customer feedback in terms of what they're wanting. And there's not many Australian companies building AI infrastructure, just given the competitive pressures of the US and the capital requirements to really compete, with those larger players. I think there's probably 3 areas that we assess more broadly from a founder perspective. Is the first is, as I mentioned, the unique understanding of the problem. So how uniquely positioned are you to understand the problem intimately? Can you solve that solution, or do you have a unique insight into how you solve that solution? That's probably more on the domain expertise side. The second area is